Hi lovely people, welcome to Vicky's Signature. In today's tutorial, I'll be looking at how to draft a well-fitted high-waist pants. If this is your first time you are seeing this channel, thanks for stopping by, and to my returning subscribers, thanks for sticking to this channel. So while I was done drafting the pattern, I made use of it to sew this wide leg palazzo pants, that is after slashing it. So in today's tutorial, I'll be showing you step by step in order for you to draft this pattern. So let's get right into the video. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please kindly subscribe and turn on your notification bell. So for us to do that, we'll be using our pattern paper, our tape, French curve, and then of course our ruler. So firstly, what we'll be doing, we are going to be ruling a margin of 2 inches on both sides of the pattern paper in order for it to serve as our starting point. So I'll go ahead to rule a margin of 2 inches on the sides of the pattern paper, just as you can see. So when I'm done, I'll just connecting them will start properly. So after ruling the margin, this is what we have. So automatically the first one at the upper part is serving as our waistline. Now what we'll be doing is we just go ahead and write waistline, that is WL. So next thing we'll be doing, we are going to be measuring our waist to hip. So the waist to hip I'm working with is 10 inches. So you are going to measure it on your body or on the body of your client. So mind you, this is a high-waisted pants, so it is 10 inches. So anything I have on that side, I'll go to the other part and still mark that 10 inches. After marking it, I'll take the ruler to connect it with a straight line. Now after connecting with a straight line, we are going to be marking our waist to crotch. So for you to get your crotch measurements, please pay attention to this particular part. You are going to be dividing your hip measurements by 3 because this is a high waist pant or this is a jumpsuit. So you are going to be dividing it by 3. Anything you have, you are going to be putting it there. So when I divided I had 13 inches. So I've gone ahead to put a 13 inches and then I'll use my ruler to mark it straight. So we are done with the waist, the hip, and then the crotch. So next thing now is for us to put our new measurement. For this tutorial, the new length I'm working with is 20 inches. So I'll also go ahead to mark it on the other side, just as I've been doing for the hip and crotch. Then I'll take the ruler to connect it with a very straight line. Now that is it for the new. So next now is going to be the length of the pants. So the length of this pants is 43 inches. So starting from the waist, I will be marking 43 inches. So anywhere that 43 inches stop on the length of this pattern paper, I'll go ahead to mark it just as I've been doing. I'll mark it on the 2 ends and then I'll use a straight rule to connect it together. So basically we are done with the vertical measurement, the hip line, the crotch line, the new line, and then lastly the length of the pants, which is L. So next thing now is for us to be imputing our measurement. So the measurement I'll be working with first is going to be the hip measurement. So we'll be dividing our hip by 4. So when we divided that, we have 10 inches. So I'll be putting the 10 inches on the hip line we just marked. So that is 10 inches, and then on that crotch line I'll be putting that same 10 inches. I believe you understand. So after putting the same 10 inches on that hip line and then on the crotch line, I'll just connect it together. Then back to the waist, I'll still put that 10 inches. So while we are putting these 10 inches on the waist, in order for us to get a very straight line from the hip down to the waist, that is why we are doing that. So next we'll be working with is going to be our crotch extension. So for the front crotch extension, you're going to be dividing your hip measurement by 20. So when I divided I have 2 inches. So I'll mark the 2 inches, and then on the hip line I'll just come out with 0.25 in order for our curve to fit in properly. So I've gone ahead to draw the curve of our front this extension. So that is it for the crotch part. Now we'll come to the waistline and then put our waist measurement starting from where you can see the tape is. So the waist I'm working with is 31. So the waist I'm working with is 21. When you divide it by 4, you'll be having 7.25. That is the 7.25 I mark. So after marking it, then we are going to be connecting it to the hip line. So before connecting it, you are just going to determine if you want to connect it curvily, just as you can see me doing like this, or you want to connect it straight. But me, I'll be using the straight part, so I've gone ahead to connect it straight. So now after connecting it straight, next thing now we are going to be determining the crease line. So we are going to measure all what we have on the crotch and then on the crotch extension, everything together, and then divide it by 2. So when I divided it, I have 6. That is to say everything in total there is 12. So on that 6, I'll be marking that 6 inches from that crotch line down to the length of the pants, just as you can see me, 6 inches on the crotch line. On the nail line, I'll just be marking it down to the length of the pants. So once I'm done marking it like that, I'll take the straight rule, take my ruler to connect it with a very straight line. So after doing that, on the knee line, I'll put my nail measurement. The nail I'm working with is 18 inches. When you divide 18 inches by 2, you have 9 inches. So for us to put that 9 inches, instead of us marking the 9 inches from the edge, we'll put a midpoint of the 9 inches. Instead of us marking it like this, just as you can see me doing like this, we don't do that. So we'll put a midpoint of that 9 inches, which is 4.5 at the midpoint of that line we do. Then we'll mark 1 here, and then we'll mark 9 here. That is to say, we have bring the new measurement so that it is going to be very straight at that new point. So next is just for us to connect it back to the hip and then to the crotch extension. So on the length of the pants, the hemming part, I'll be making use of 12 inches. So once I'm done dividing it, I'll bring the midpoint of it and then put it again at the midpoint. I'll put it at that line we just drew, that straight line, so that at the end of the day everything is going to be straight. So that is why we are doing that. So after doing that, we are just going to connect the line straight, just as you can see me doing like this. So while we are doing all this, in order for our pants to stay very straight, so after doing that, I'll also connect everything together, and then this is what we have. So our front pattern is ready, and then we'll be moving to the back pattern. So for us to do the back, on that hip line, we'll be coming in by 1 inches, just as you can see me doing like so. So I'll be drafting both the back and the front together, so that when I'm done, I use tracing rate to transfer it. So and then on that waistline, I'll come in by 1.5. So on the hip and crotch, I use 1 inches. On the waistline, I went in by 1.5 inches, so that the line is going to be connected slantly. So why I'm doing this dotted line is in order for us to differentiate between the back and the front. So I'll just go ahead to root the line upward. Now while we are going upward, we are going to be measuring what we have there. We'll be making use of 2 inches. So while we are doing that 2 inches, is for us to put that extra inches, that extra 2 inches, so that when you wear your pants, it's going to cover your buttons very well, so that your pants will sit properly and it is going to cover your back very well. So now we are just going to connect the hip and the crotch line together. Next thing now is for us to determine the back crotch extension. So for the back, we are not going to be dividing the hip by 20 again. We'll be dividing it by 10 in this case. So once I divided it, I have 4 inches. So I'll be marking it from that our new back line that we drew. Then I'll connect it with a curve, just as we did for the front. So my curve could not do this, so I made use of the broom, just as you can see me using the broom to connect it together. So I'll just connect it with a dotted line in order for us to differentiate between the back and the front when we are transferring our pattern. So I just go ahead to curve it properly and then blend it to enter the line properly. Now after doing that, next thing for us now is for us to come to the waist and put our waist measurement. So the waist I have is 7.25. So before doing that, I forgot something while we were drafting the front. So what I forgot is, on that waistline we were supposed to come up by half of an inch, and then on the center waist we are going to come down by half of an inch. Then we connect it slantly like this. I believe you can understand what I'm trying to say. So after doing that, now we can put our back waist measurements properly. So anything I have on the front waist, I'll put it on the back waist, and then I'll connect it slantly to meet that point, so that everything align at that half inch that I went up. I believe you understand what I'm trying to say. So I'll just connect it with a straight line. Now after connecting with a straight line, I'll go to the hip measurement and put my hip measurement there. So hip we are working with is 10, which is our 40 divided by 4. So once I mark it, I'll put a 10 inches there, and then go to the crotch and I'll put that same 10 inches there. It is almost same thing we did for the front. So after doing that, I'll just go ahead to connect the line together. So after connecting it, I'll then connect from the waist to meet the hip. So we'll also be using our dotted line here in order for us to differentiate between the back and the front, just as I've been saying since. So we'll just go ahead to connect the waist down to the hip line. That is what I'm doing right now. So next thing now is for us to go down to the knee and then to the length of the pants and continue with the rest of the thing there. So what you are going to do is, we are not doing much calculation here again. So on that knee line, I'll come out by half of an inch. As I am increasing the back with half of an inch. We are not going to be using that front measurement. So I'll come out with half of an inch on the knee line, and then on the length of the pant on this side, and then I'll connect it together with a dotted line, just as you can see me doing like that, in order for us to differentiate between the front and the back pattern. So I'll just go ahead to connect it straight down to the length of the pant. So when I'm done doing that, I'll go to the other side of the pant where the crotch is. I'll mark my half inch again, and then I'll mark it on the length of the pant also. So I'll also carry the straight rule and connect it from the crotch to meet the knee with a dotted line, and then from the knee I'll connect it down to the hem or the length of the pant. After that, I'll just try to blend all sharp edges together, and that is all for the back drafting. So we are going to be placing it on a new pattern paper and trace it, but I discovered that the other part is enough to cut the back, to cut the front. So what I did, I just flipped the fabric together, like I flipped the pattern together, then I used a tracing reel to trace out the front on the other part. So this is the front that I am cutting. I believe you understand what I'm trying to say. So after doing that, this is the front, and then this is our back. We just go ahead to cut it properly. So I didn't add a zipper allowance to the back, so this is a zipper allowance that I am adding. So after adding it, I'll just go ahead to connect it. So we'll be using this particular pattern to cut this very jumpsuit you are seeing in my next tutorial, to sew and cut this jumpsuit you are seeing in my next tutorial.